If you like the show, please support us by voting for my sponsor, Cypherglass, using your favorite wallet or block explorer. But before you do that, make sure you smash that like button and leave a comment letting us know what you thought of the show.
Welcome back to the longest running EOS podcast, Everything EOS. We're so happy you joined us again this week, and a sincere thank you before we jump right into the news on helping us pass 1,000 subscribers here on the new channel, and then again helping us smash through 1,100 subscribers. So looks like we're sitting at 1,129. Let's see how many more we can get between now and next week. So if you're not already subscribed, smash that button, hit the little bell, and you'll always get the latest EOS breaking news.
We don't want to forget to give love to our listeners, too. We still have a lot of people that just listen. So in that case, if you're on iTunes,
Absolutely.
5-star review, or better yet, just leave a typed review because we don't have too many new ones. But I wanted to bring this up again because I love talking about the partnership we've been seeing being built over time between Block.One and Virginia Tech. Now, if you're just hearing about this for the first time today, Virginia Tech is one of the top engineering schools in the United States. Dan Larimer is an alumni there, and it's located within a mile of the Block.One Blacksburg headquarters. And then May, a $3 million grant was issued from Block.One to Virginia Tech for them to develop a blockchain curriculum so that their students, and especially in their engineering and computer science departments, could learn the value of blockchain and basically how to build on one and all about decentralization. And then we saw another speech that Dan gave. When was that, Rob? Was it November? He gave another one at Virginia Tech?
I think so, yeah. It was sometime in the last couple months. It's been, I never thought I would be jealous of a college student again since I dropped out of college, but I am a little jealous of the people at Virginia Tech getting all these free Dan speeches. It's pretty awesome.
Me too. I mean, I really appreciate Block.One with getting them the videos. First of all, they record them, and then they post them on the Block.One YouTube channel a week or two later. But what they post on the YouTube is always like 30 or 40-minute videos, and I know Dan probably was there for a lot longer than what they're showing us. Maybe it's just boring stuff, but what's happened recently, and we talked about this last week, is Block.One actually sponsored a blockchain boot camp. I think two Saturdays ago at Virginia Tech. So basically, it was just like it sounded like it was a hackathon that was all day Saturday, and Dan Larimer was there to advise everyone. But what has me excited about this, and we explained a lot more last week about what the event was, but the thing that has me excited is the fact that all of these people at Virginia Tech are excited, because I would get excited about this no matter what, but to see all the different engineering departments at Virginia Tech from their own individual like department Twitters, like posting stuff about how they enjoyed the hackathon. And then the reason we brought this up to kick off the show is because right before we started recording, one of our regular audience members, Mark Woods?
Mark Woods, yeah.
Mark Woods, shout out to Mark Woods. He's always, I think he lives in Blacksburg, actually.
Okay.
And I think, but he's always kind of tuning us into the stuff going at Virginia Tech because he's a Hokie as well, an alumni at Virginia Tech. So he's just as excited as the students, and that has me excited.
Yeah, I mean, if you think, we're all building EOS. We're trying to build this blockchain ecosystem where people can build decentralized apps. And the biggest piece that's kind of missing right now are enough developers to build those apps. One of our developers that we had in the early days of Cypherglass got hired by Block.One. There's so much demand for blockchain developers right now, and there's really not enough of them. So to see them sort of lighting this fire under the students at Virginia Tech, saying like, hey, there are all of these career opportunities, not just at Block.One, but in so many other crypto companies where you can take this knowledge and turn it into a real career. You should become, a blockchain engineer and blockchain developer instead of just a traditional developer, I think is awesome and will really help to build out that ecosystem in the future as we, grow it and build more and more dApps.
I'm pumped. The last thing before we move on is for this boot camp that they had, they have some public GitHub repos on the EOSIO GitHub page, and I'll put the links in the descriptions, but I don't think these have been tweeted out or announced officially yet, but it's a really good starter package if you're someone who's just getting started in EOSIO development, or you're just looking to maybe teach someone else, or just looking to compile a list of good links and tools. So check out the description for that.
Yeah, and speaking of GitHub, we actually got a new update to the Rex GitHub as well. It looks like Block.One published an update that really didn't change a ton with the existing Rex code, the release candidate that they released a couple weeks ago. But they did make some, improvements that should hopefully set the initial price of Rex, of the CPU and net on EOS when it goes live. It should make it cheaper to start. So they've adjusted the algorithm a little bit. They added in some additional developer calls that make things a little bit easier, make it easier to kind of interact with the whole system. So work is still being done on Rex. It is, the second release candidate. This could be implemented now, but of course, we're still waiting on that referendum piece. And I think we have an update there as well on how all that's going.
So Rex doesn't actually need a referendum to be implemented, but to get the full functionality in all of the revenue streams, including from the name auction and from the RAM trading fees, the Rex for all referenda needs to pass first. Do you think that's the reason that the Rex hasn't been implemented yet? Is just they're waiting for Rex for all, or what do you think's happening there? Since the code, even though this is an update to the code, it's been ready for a couple weeks now, and then a week or two ago, shout out to EOS Authority, they actually released their code review on it, and it passed all of their tests.
Yeah, I do. And shout out to EOS Authority for doing that. I know, they're doing kind of the work that doesn't get a lot of credit right now, and we appreciate them testing Rex and making sure it does work. Obviously, they may have to go back and test a little bit more with these minor updates, but hopefully it's not too much of a change over the previous version. But I definitely think that block producers are waiting for Rex for all to pass, or at least get more voting support, so that when they implement Rex, they can include that piece as well. Because I think, the community's perspective is, oh, Rex is another way for me to earn money, not just from CPU leasing fees, but also from, the name bidding and RAM trading fees as well. So I think we kind of want to introduce it as this complete package. But if you look at Rex for all right now, even though only about 21 or 22 million EOS are voted towards it, 99% of the EOS voted towards this proposal are voted yes. So, it seems to be a pretty clear indication to me that the community does want this. And I hope that, even if we don't hit the 15% threshold, which I think we're going to talk about here in a little bit, I hope that this could still be implemented anyway, because it's a feature that the community and the overall ecosystem, I think, really wants and needs.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that the community's spoken. I mean, 99% to 1. We'll get into the voting in a little bit here, but let's just walk through some of the other referendas besides Rex for all. So the second place referenda as far as the most participation, and it has slightly less votes, but only by a couple 100,000, is the decaf, and that's to remove ECAF from the Constitution.
And if you look at the current state of ECAF anyway, with the recent, I don't know the actual term of the seat that they had, but the interim manager there had stepped down and now has kind of relinquished power there. But block producers ultimately at the end of the day are the ones that determine whether or not they're going to implement any of these ECAF orders. And as we've seen recently, pretty much all of the block producers have come out and said, hey, the community has told us that they don't want ECAF, so we're no longer going to implement these orders. So as far as I'm concerned, ECAF is basically dead, and we already have, decaf coffee now where ECAF is gone, and we don't really have to worry about it anymore. But the more votes we can get to kind of reaffirm that, then I think we can make this official on the chain and really remove that ECAF part out of the original placeholder constitution.
So right before referendum went live, Brendan Bloomer came out and got everyone talking about one token, one vote. Now, looking at the top referendum now, it dropped significantly down the list. And I think a big reason behind that is because there was no code behind it. So even if it passed, it wouldn't get implemented. But it recently got brought up again. I highly recommend it. I don't even know what do you know what that show is called, Rob? I don't have it in the notes.
I don't. It was a cool news show, though. It looked like in New York that Kevin actually went to.
So Kevin Rose, he was on a video show. I'll have the link in the description. But the part of the conversation that really stood out was his opinion on why he's hesitant to jump all in on the one token, one vote. And it made a lot of sense to me. And I want to get your opinion on it, too.
Basically, right now in the current EOS ecosystem, there's a lot of collaboration between block producers. A good example of this is with something like the referendum tool that was EOS Canada and other BPs all working towards the same goal of actually finishing, the code for referendum. And then you had other BPs jump in to build front ends for it. EOS Cafe Block and who's the other? HK EOS from Blocks.io. You had people from EOS Titan and Aloha EOS all building interfaces for this referendum tool. And why they're sort of all able to collaborate right now, and this is a point that Kevin Rose from EOS New York was making that I think is a really great point and has me reconsidering the one token, one vote as well, is that because each individual user has 30 votes, you can collaborate with other BPs because you know, hey, if Referendum is successful, we get this tool out, the users can vote for all of us. They can vote for EOS Canada, they can vote for Cypherglass, they can vote for Aloha, all the people that were sort of involved in that. But beyond that, if you take away those 30 votes and you make it 1 token, 1 vote per person, it really becomes more of a competitive landscape rather than a collaborative one. And that I think could be a little dangerous when you have these major chain initiatives that have only been successful because so many block producers were working together. If suddenly you take out the ability for them all to benefit from a voting perspective when they work on something that is successful together, and you make it that only one of them can benefit when they work on something, there's probably going to be a whole lot less collaboration. And it is a pretty dangerous thing since most of the main tools and new functionality of EOS right now since it's launched have come from collaboration of the block producers. So, hearing Kevin say this before I watched that interview, I was very much like, hey, 1 token, 1 vote is the way to go. It has a lot of pros in sort of removing power from cartels and making it harder to take over the network. But at the same time, I hadn't considered what Kevin was bringing up, which is this collaborative nature that could potentially go away if we implement 1 token, 1 vote. So at this point, I'm kind of undecided on which way I want to go. I see pros to both, but I also see cons to both. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how that all shakes out.
Yeah. The lack of collaboration would be bad enough. So let's just assume that projects like Shintai couldn't get done because it requires collaboration. So that would be bad enough. But the other side effect would be, I feel like not all of, but a lot of the block producers would start attacking each other because they're all competing. And we don't really know yet how voter behavior is going to change with 1 token, 1 vote. We could think and hope that token holders are going to vote for an array of different block producers rather than just 3, 4, or 5. But at the same time, that's one of the reasons for 1 token, 1 vote is because most voters don't even know anywhere close to 30 BPs. So right now, they're probably, if they're voting for 30, they're voting for a handful that they know, and then a bunch of people that they don't know. So I'm still undecided, but I just wanted to give a shout out to EOS New York and whoever's show that was. Your link will be in the description. I'm sorry. But I guess we can continue talking about EOS New York because they brought up some really interesting points on Referendum as well.
Yeah, so they put out an article titled Rethinking EOS Referendum Game Theory, Why 15% Token Participation is Irrelevant. And as we've seen with things like the Rex for All proposal, even though 99% of the, say, 22 million tokens that are voted towards the proposal are voted yes, there's still sort of this 15% threshold of 150 million tokens that needs to be hit before the block producers are saying they're going to implement it. And EOS New York put out a really convincing article on why 15% is kind of irrelevant, and we should look more to just the amount of people approving versus denying. And even went into some interesting details that we'll kind of unpack here about how when you have a system that requires 15% voting threshold, even if some percentage of that is a no vote, if you want to vote no against something, are actually incentivized to not vote on it at all. And that may appear like voter apathy when in reality, you just don't want to contribute more votes to the proposal to get it over that threshold, even though it would be a no vote. So it's interesting how that kind of affects the game theory here. And maybe we can unpack this overall article a little bit.
I think first we got to backtrack and just remind everyone the rules of passing a referenda based on how it was proposed. So to pass a referenda, someone has to propose it. It's supposed to include all of the code required to implement it. That way, if it is approved, it can be implemented by the block producers. But the minimum requirements are you have to have 15% of the total tokens voting either yes or no. So one or the other. They just have to be voting. And at least 55% of those 15% have to be casting a yes vote compared to a no vote. And they both have to be sustained for 30 consecutive days. So you have to have that 15% threshold and the yes threshold for 30 consecutive days before it officially passes. And from what we're seeing with referendum so far, voter participation is still very low, but it seems like they're signaling very well with the 99% votes yes. But the problem with all of this and these rules are if let's hypothetically say that it stayed 99% yes, but we were up to like 12% and we only had 3% to go. If you were against Rex for All or the decaf, you're not going to vote at all. So there's like no point to voting for no. So it throws off the entire system. And then the other thing is that there's a decent chance that we're not going to hit 15% anytime soon, but there's a lot of proposals that need to be implemented, hopefully sometime early this year. So do we really want to, as a blockchain, wait and wait and wait? Like, how long are we going to wait on a referendum if it doesn't pass? I know it's only been a month, but what if we're 6 months down the road and we still haven't passed a single referendum? And I think getting this message out early from the EOS New York is great, because I'm glad it's coming out now and not 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the line if we don't get the voter participation that we want. And hopefully we do get that voter participation, but nothing's guaranteed here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I definitely agree with it at the higher end. Say like you had, that example, you only needed 3% more to get over it. I think where it could get dangerous, where I'm kind of on the fence, is, how low, how few votes could you get to still pass a referendum? For example, even if we're not setting a threshold, if say only 5 million tokens are voted to something, which many whales have, 5 million or more tokens, and could sort of sway the decision one way or the other, would that be enough to pass referendum? So even though I tend to agree that 15% may be too high, I think we need to be careful about lowering the threshold too low, or removing it entirely, to the point where then referendum could be open to manipulation. So it's so interesting to watch governance evolve, where we are trying to decentralize control from the block producers out to the token holders and use referendum as kind of a signal for the block producers on what to do. And I don't think that signal is going to be perfect the first time we release it. Like the very first version of referendum, we can't expect to be the same version of referendum that we have 6 months from now, or a year from now, or 10 years from now. I think it's inevitable that system will go through changes. It's just a matter of making sure that the changes we make to the referendum system are the correct changes that won't negatively impact the chain. But overall, for the most part, I agree with this article that 15% is clearly too high based on the voter participation now. Maybe there's some other way we could do it. I saw ideas thrown around for 50% of the tokens right now, or 49% of all EOS tokens, are staked right now. But then if you look at the amount voting, it's about 20 to 25%. So maybe you could make the threshold 15% of the actual amount of tokens that are being voted. And that would be obviously a much, much smaller number than 150 million. It would look something like 35 or 37 million, which we are actually very close to hitting on some of these proposals. So maybe that's the better way to start it for now, and then you could remove the limit completely in the future if you needed to. But overall, I agree. I'm glad this is being talked about now and not 3 months later when a proposal still hasn't passed.
I think you're right about the part of contention is always going to be like, what is the right threshold? If 15%'s a little high, then what do we start considering a little low? Because right now with 2% voter participation, I think we could all agree it's a little bit low. But what I like about putting this out early is if we run into a situation where we need like Rex for all to pass, there's a voter tool that I saw recently where it has all of the referendum proposals, and then it shows all of the block producers what they signal to vote for, yes or no, from their block producer account. So what that signal does is, let's use the Rex for all for an example. So Rex for all is at 2% approval. Let's say it creeps up to 5, 6, 7, and then people start debating whether or not this is enough to pass the threshold. So using this tool, and I wish I had it in front of me, but as a token holder, as a voter, you could look and you could look and see what which proposals the block producers all support. So if they say, yes, they support Rex for all and they'll implement it now, then even if it's not above the referendum, you could vote for them for that reason. Whereas you could also do the opposite, and maybe there's someone that you usually voted for. You've voted for them since Mainnet launch, but they're signaling no for some reason for something that you really want to pass on referendum, but it's probably not going to meet that threshold. And you're hoping that there's like, if there's debate amongst the block producers, then we're going to, as token holders in a community, we're going to vote to get the 15 block producers in that are going to do and implement whatever we think as token holders is correct. And because of how DPoS works, it's liquid democracy. So we'll see what happens. I think it's an interesting new element to think about.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting alternative. My only concern is that if we can't get people to vote for the actual referendum itself, I worry that we can't get people to vote for the BPs that will implement the referendum without getting enough referendum votes. So it's kind of a catch-22 in a lot of ways. But it will be interesting to see what happens. And I think that signaling will help because, you know, ultimately at the end of the day, block producers like ourselves at Cypherglass are community members, and we want this chain to succeed, you know, just as much as any other community member. So when it comes to something like Rex for All, even without a change in the block producer rankings, I think we would probably be able to pass with a 15 out of 21 vote, you know, getting that in there. So I hope to see more use of that tool as a signaling approach to say, you know, hey, let's go ahead and do this thing. Clearly, the people that have voted have, you know, made their case. That proposal's been up for a month now. Like, I think it's a good time to implement it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
In your opinion, how long and around what voter percentage would you say it's time to implement Rex for All? Like, how long should we wait?
I think if you give people a solid 30 days, which I think we're coming up on now, to vote on a proposal where it's been, you know, voiced throughout the community on places like Everything EOS and on the Cypherglass channel and on Twitter and so many other places, I think if you haven't voted within that first 30-day period, you're probably not going to vote. So I think 30 days is probably a good time limit to leave something up, to really discuss it, to get feedback. And then, assuming there is still this super majority, 99% community support of voted tokens, you know, go ahead and implement it. And then, you know, if you say, hey, we're going to implement this thing in 1 week, you may see a bunch of no votes come in, and it'll be interesting to see kind of how that all plays out. But you also may see more yes votes come in to sort of, you know, coerce the block producers to go ahead and implement it. So it's fascinating to see blockchain governance like this. When it comes to voting with tokens has really never been done on a scale like this. Obviously, you've had other platforms that vote, but when it comes to referendum and making massive changes and upgrades and whole, you know, protocol improvements like Rex to the overall network, this stuff really hasn't happened before. So we're in uncharted territory, and we don't really know what's going to happen, but it's been fascinating to see how it's all played out so far.
It's been a wild ride, man. This is something we'll probably be telling our grandkids about how crazy it was. It's like the founding fathers of your government. It's like you're trying to build this governance model that's never existed before, and you're picking pieces from all these different elements and putting them together, and some of them just don't fit together. But it's interesting to see the community come together to make a decision as a group.
So obviously with all this, there's one core theme, which is that making decisions as a collective, as a group, where many, many different parties are involved, all of the members of the system, whether they're block producers or voters or just token holders, all of these people sort of have a say in the system. But unfortunately, we saw recently and saw the huge community blowback from it, of where a centralized decision of an upcoming blockchain network really kind of, in my opinion, hurt that network overall and certainly hurt the community's perception of it. So this was Worbli, as I'm sure you guys have heard, coming out even just a week after confirming that you would have until May to claim your Worbli tokens, basically came out and canceled the whole share drop, said, hey, if you haven't claimed yet, with no notice, you now can't get your tokens. We're giving them to a partner instead. So obviously, as you can imagine, the entire community was very, very upset. There were Telegram battles and Twitter battles, of which I was definitely a part of, sort of criticizing Worbli and Dominic there, who it seemed kind of made that top-down decision for the entire network.
So I could agree with a lot of things. I think it was handled very poorly, but I also... Worbli never claimed to be decentralized. They're centralized from the start, and their goal is to become more decentralized. If they really did, so I don't know if it's in their blog post or on Twitter or somewhere in Telegram where I read it, but they're trying to kind of explain their decision here. And the way they described it was they had basically a deal on the table that was a major partnership, and the only way it could get signed and get done was if they knew the fixed supply of their token. So that basically means they'd have to cut off their share drop because they're minting or giving away new tokens. And at the end of the share drop, they're going to burn all of the unclaimed tokens. So what Worbli said here was that there were other competitors for the same contract or deal with this business. And they really needed to get it done. And they made this decision, and I don't think they made it lightly. So they had to have known that they were going to get this major blowback from the community, because like Rob said, on January 27th, they made a blog post. It basically stated the share drop, you have until, I think, March 1st to claim. So I think they might have moved it up a little bit because I think it was originally May. I'm not sure of all their dates. But then they also made a promise to another situation with Worbli. So to backtrack and explain, another thing that they kind of pivoted on last minute was Worbli is supposed to be the financial district of EOSIO. And they're KYCing, know your customer, validating IDs of every Worbli account holder. So to claim your airdrop tokens from EOS to Worbli, they're a one-to-one airdrop, you have to go through a KYC process. But there were limitations within it where if you held your EOS across multiple accounts, which most of us do, then you could only claim your tokens on one of them. And that's a big deal because what if you claimed your tokens on an account that has 5% of your tokens, or maybe you have it spread out evenly 33% across three? I don't know. But imagine being that person who you're waiting for a fix. Worbli they said, we're working on a solution to this multiple account claim. And on January 27th, they said, we're going to have it for you, basically. 1 week later, February 4th, they came out and said, you have like 2 days to finish your KYC process if you're already in process. If you're not in process, too late, you can't really claim anything. And basically, they didn't give enough notice to even start the claiming process so that you can complete it within even a small time frame. I feel like my biggest complaint here was that they gave no grace time. Cutting it off on short notice is not a big deal to me at all because they never claimed to be completely decentralized. And because if I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that this deal might be a good deal. I hope it is. I really hope it is. Because if it's not, they're going to look really bad here. But if they had to close it early, close it early. That makes sense to me from a business standpoint, even if you get blowback. But you have to give even 48 hours, 72 hours, 1 week. Say the share drop ends in a week. You're going to see a bunch of people claiming it, and then you're not going to get this community outrage that we have. But Rob, didn't you say that you got the email about it after the claim period ended that they gave you?
Yeah, so if you sign up on their email list, they basically said, hey, it kind of devolved over time, but they basically said, hey, we give you 3 hours notice, which is a joke within itself because people are out of their house, away from their keys. Maybe they don't have their passport. They have to go get it out of a safe deposit box or whatever. 3 hours is not enough notice as it is. But when you went back and looked at the time that they actually sent out the warning email, I got it like 35 minutes after the 3-hour deadline to submit your KYC had closed. So the whole thing very intentionally seemed they were trying to keep the claimed float as small as possible. And if you look at the actual number of claimed accounts on Worbli, it's very, very low. So it doesn't seem like they've been very successful with the community anyway as it is. Only about 3% of all accounts have been claimed, about 30 million tokens out of the billion. But the most telling thing to me, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because it seems kind of irrelevant now. They're doing their own private chain thing like so many people have tried to do in the past. But the most telling thing Dominic said, who's the CEO of Worbli, he said he wishes they didn't do the share drop at all. He wishes they didn't give tokens to anyone within the EOS community. And I think that was very telling and kind of tied in with a point that Crypto Iwad, Rahman from Investing with a Difference made, is that they're not a community chain. They are ultimately a private blockchain like an IBM Hyperledger or something similar to that, where they're going to be hosting private businesses on a private blockchain. They don't really care about the community. And I think why everybody was so outraged about this was because this entire time, Worbli had kind of put up this face of like, hey, we love the community. We're here for you. We're doing a share drop, only to then say that they regretted doing it completely and that they wish the community wasn't involved at all. So it was just kind of disappointing to see the community sort of be, bait and switch like that. Like, hey, we're a community chain. The financial district of EOS. Oh, just kidding. Actually, we care about this mystery partner that may actually never be announced. We don't know yet until they are announced. We care about them more than the actual community. So I think it was very telling, but ultimately has pushed people back to the EOS mainnet, which I think is a good thing. I think we can all rally around the mainnet as an entity where we're driving all of the value to. So if you want to do a private chain, go ahead, be our guest, but it's clear that the community is not going to support that anymore after, sort of being screwed over by Worbli.
I mean, I do think we're going to see, just from listening to Dan Larimer speak, we're going to see tens of thousands of private blockchains. Basically, if you're running on a database today, he expects you to be running on a blockchain in the future. So the fact that they're private, I think they're just proving this use case. I think the mistake was trying to appear as being more community oriented than they ended up being at the end of the day. But man, I got some good lulls out of this, man. So
yeah, there's some good memes.
So there were people rude mud crab. Shout out to you, man. He started posting all these memes. I had to like hold back from it. I was so busy I couldn't make my own memes, and I didn't want to like start mudslinging or anything, but he got everyone stirred up. People were saying Crypto Tim was saying how he won't vote for any block producer who's producing on Worbli now. I think people need to kind of just let it go at this point. I'm not going to claim my tokens either. I missed it. That's fine. I want them to succeed. I'm just not going to be a part of it personally, but I'm cheering them on.
So onward and upward. Absolutely.
Let's finish this off with, and I've been saying this for a long time now, you can fork a blockchain and a code repo, but you can't fork a community. And that's exactly what we've seen from every single sister chain to date. It can't even come close to the user adoption so far of the EOS mainnet. And
absolutely. All you have to do are look at the claim statistics. Worbli, 3% of accounts claimed. Telos, I think, was about the same. Last I heard was about 5% of all accounts claimed. So the actual interest in these chains, while on social media may have initially seemed larger, when you look down into the actual statistics of who is using these things, even if you give somebody free accounts and free resources and all of these things to build on your chain, doesn't mean they're going to build on your chain, especially when there's a public blockchain that is the most used in the world that already has, 800,000 wallets on it. The EOS mainnet, that is clearly where the developers are building, not on a private chain that, one guy or a few guys can come in and change on the drop of a hat. So excited to see more support for the EOS mainnet going forward. Absolutely.
All right, Rob, it's time to wash off all of this mud, get ourselves clean because it's sunny outside. There's too much good stuff happening, and there's a lot of dapps doing work. They're getting work done. They're launching on Mainnet. Mainnet launch. Lumeos on the Mainnet. You want to talk about Lumeos for a bit?
Yeah, so Lumeos, which is an awesome app. You can download it on the App Store if you have an iPhone. I believe it's on Google Play if you're on Android. You can download the app and use it on Mainnet right now. You essentially can answer polls from Lumeos or from other users. I've put up a couple polls as well that you can go answer, and you'll earn Loom tokens for answering those polls. So it's a very cool system, really shows the power of kind of abstracting the blockchain part away and just making a new fun app. And then if you want to, you can link your individual EOS account, make sure that all your poll answers are going on chain. And in the future, I imagine they'll probably give you more value for your answers if you put it on chain versus not having it on chain. So very cool app. Excited to see them launch on the EOS mainnet as well. And we have a couple more here.
Well, wait, you're on the leaderboard, aren't you? Before we move away from Lumeos.
I gotta say, I won the most popular poll of the week, I think it is, where they give you 1,000, free Loom, which really boosts up your score. That put me in number 4 and number 3 on the overall leaderboard. And then I managed to, at night, I saw a bunch of polls got posted. This was a couple nights ago, and I managed to get number 1 and was pretty excited about that. Now I have slipped down to number 2. The guy kind of saw that I was there, but it's a close race. So check out the leaderboards, give me a follow on Lumeos, and I hope to see you there.
What about you? You didn't talk about the pool that I wanted to hear about. I wanted to hear about the leaderboard, but I want to hear about the Everything EOS pool that you shared with me too.
Oh, yeah. So there was a cool poll that I actually didn't make. Somebody put it out basically saying, what's your favorite crypto media? And by a landslide, Everything EOS is won. So if you're one of the people out there, one of the Lumeos users, if you voted for Everything EOS, thank you so much. We appreciate all the support as always. You guys are great.
All right, moving along. Your boys at Everipedia, Mabad and the crew, they announced first of all, they announced a partnership with XYO, which is very similar, I think, from what I understand, to Platin, which we talked about last week. They just got some EOS VC investment. So they're basically doing blockchain. How do you describe this, Rob? Like blockchain in the real world, like in physical?
I would say it's basically a way to determine location in a decentralized manner where you're not relying on one third party to say, this is the correct GPS location. You're not relying on Google Maps for it. So very similar to Platin that we talked about, I think, last week's episode. It is another sort of geospatial location network on the blockchain that Everipedia is going to be utilizing in some way. It's unclear how they're going to be utilizing it, but cool again to see them, integrating with another project.
Well, when I was still at ICO Alert, whenever XYO did their ICO, and I didn't work with them directly, but I remember that there was a lot of hype around that. I forget who in the office was real big on it, but
oh, nice.
I didn't have time to really dig in, but I do remember it was a big project, and it actually has a team with a lot of experience behind it. This isn't just like they might be a first-time blockchain company, but I think they have like a geospatial, like major background. But I didn't have time to look at too much before the show. I don't have it in the notes, but didn't Everipedia announce something about more dApps coming to the platform?
Yeah, so this was so interesting. So a couple days ago, you all may have noticed if you went to CoinMarketCap or checked your Blockfolio.
That pump.
Yeah, the IQ token suddenly was up 111% just like that. It looked like some whale came in and bought like 40 million IQ or some huge amount. So everybody started tweeting about it. Hey, what's going on? Even Mabod at Everipedia himself started tweeting about it. And there's really is no new news. They said even at the beginning of this year that they're building 4 new dApps, a prediction market, a Quora-like platform where you get rewarded in IQ, and a few others where basically they're trying to make IQ the currency of knowledge on the internet, where anywhere that you contribute information or knowledge, whether it's on Everipedia or their future prediction market or a Quora-like marketplace, or even they were tweeting Jack about rewarding people on Twitter, with IQ tokens for contributing knowledge. Wherever you contribute knowledge online, you should be rewarded with the IQ token. So that's kind of their grand vision. And we did hear from Mabod that 2 of their dApps should be released soon. What we know, hopefully, is that that's the prediction market coming in February, and another one, which we're not sure which, coming sometime later this year. So I think it's just more excitement and hype around that, waiting for that prediction market to go live, and maybe that's why a whale or a few whales came in and bought up a lot of the tokens.
Did they confirm it?
Always cool to see.
I'm sorry. Did they confirm it was the prediction market, or are you just speculating on that?
Just speculating on that.
I want to add to that. Whenever I talked to Crystal Rose, I asked her predictions for 2019, and she's very close with Everipedia, and she wasn't going to answer, but then she said something like, "Ooh, we got prediction markets now," and I don't think she was talking about Augur, since Augur's not new.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. I mean, it's not a big secret.
And there have been rumblings that the prediction market will be the first. That the reason why I mentioned February is I think it might have even been Mabod himself on Twitter had said, prediction market coming February. I don't know if that's still the case, but I'm just kind of going off that same information.
All right, so let's talk about those divs and staking. HireVibes just kicked off their staking on February 1st. You want to tell everyone about that, Rob?
Yeah, so HireVibes, if you're not familiar, they're building a decentralized platform for hiring people. So, right now, like we mentioned earlier in the show with the whole Virginia Tech thing, it's very hard to find a blockchain developer. So people are looking at pretty much any platform they can to find them and be incentivized in some way to, link those 2 people together. So if I know somebody that needs a blockchain job and I know Everipedia is hiring, I can link them together on HireVibes and get rewarded in some way. But what was cool is that HireVibes actually just recently launched their staking mechanism on the EOS mainnet, where if you hold HVT tokens, you can lock them up, I believe, for it's either 24-hour unstaking or 7-day. You can check out their website, HireVibes.io, and figure out the specifics there. But you can stake and actually earn back a certain amount of HireVibes over time just for staking and locking up those tokens. So obviously there will be more staking mechanisms in the future where a percentage of those reward fees, and I think part of the platform profit, will go to HVT token holders. But right now they're just rewarding people similar to how Karma rewards people for staking, in that they're giving you more HVT tokens for staking. So pretty cool to see. Another awesome app launching on the EOS mainnet.
I love the concept of these staking rewards early on in a project. We'll talk about Pixios in a second. But what it does is it rewards early adopters for kind of taking tokens out of the liquidity pool because you're locking them up. So if I'm a whale and I got 10% of the entire token supply, if I want to keep my tokens liquid because I'm speculating on them, then I'm not going to be able to increase my piece of that pie. My pie will actually get smaller because I'm not participating in the network. I'm just holding tokens, which isn't exactly participating. But if I stake my tokens, usually there's a time lock on them, just like with EOS has a 3-day locking period. I don't know what HireVibes is, but you have your tokens staked. So you're basically, if you want to increase... what do you call it? Your market share. If you want to increase your market share, if I have 10% of token supply today, and they're doing this 3-month staking period, I can earn a little bit of interest every day. And because not everyone's going to be staking, I'm actually going to have more than 10% of the supply over time. So I'm being rewarded for being an early adopter on the network. It's really cool to see all of the different mechanisms that are being come up with to gamify and like the token economics of all the different staking systems. So we talked earlier about how it's the governance is always changing and we don't know what the right way is because this has never been done before. I think it's the same with these staking and dividend paying tokens, is coming up with what is the secret sauce to this? Like, how do we make the perfect token model that rewards the users, rewards the shareholders and rewards the network all at the same time. And it's very hard to do, but it's really cool to see all these teams trying. And one that I'm excited about because I've been playing it way more than I'd like to admit, actually, and that's Pixios, the beta of their paintbrush game, which is similar to Pixios, or it's similar to Pixel Masters if you played that a couple months ago. But it's a really cool game. Rob's involved with them through Cypherglass. You want to kind of give your side of it, then I'll tell you about what I've been painting.
Yeah, so Pixios itself is a larger art gamification platform. They have things with NFTs and a whole auction house. There are a bunch of different facets of the platform that are coming in the near future. But the first major piece, which is their gaming side, just launched their very first game in beta, and it's called Pixios Paint, like you mentioned. Very similar to Pixel Master, you have this giant collaborative canvas where you can go on, you can buy pixels, you can paint with everybody else, paint over other people's drawings, which has been interesting to see, the modification of somebody draws an umbrella and somebody else goes and colors it in, or somebody draws a portrait and somebody else adds a mustache. And it's been very cool to kind of see this whole, collaborative canvas evolve. It is still in beta, so they're fixing some little bugs. The platform's come a long way, even in only the last few days, just with user feedback and things like that. But it's been a lot of fun. And I think that, I was explaining to the team, I think they've cracked the hardest part of this, which was to build a fun game. That really is the hardest part of anything. Fixing the little UI issues and things like that, most of which they've fixed already, is kind of the easy part relative to building a fun game. So I've been having a lot of fun over there using my account rob.vr that I got on EOS Name Service, which we'll talk about, to paint some pixels. And of course, with Pixios as well, there is a staking mechanism where right now you stake your Pixios, you can get Pixios as sort of this initial reward period, but you'll also be getting EOS as a percentage of the platform's rewards as well, similar to DICE. So very cool model. Also just launched on the EOS mainnet. This is kind of our EOS mainnet rundown.
Let me do the disclaimer here because I just got my first dividends. So like I said, man, I didn't ever do DICE. So I've never earned a dividend on any EOS token because I just didn't want to get in late on any of these gambling dapps, which is my decision. So it was really cool to wake up this morning, open up my Pixios, and I've been painting on the pixels. So we talked about like the staking and the game theories. So the way this paint game works is you could buy a pixel and paint it whatever color you want. It's just like owning a piece of land, and it starts at 0.05 EOS on a pixel that's never been painted on. And then if someone wants to paint over that pixel, they have to pay 35% more than what the previous buyer paid for it. So if I bought it for 0.05, the next person, I don't know, like 0.07 or something, and the previous owner actually gets a portion of the proceeds, the profit of that sale, and then another portion of that sale goes into a big pool. And that pool of EOS being earned through these pixel sales is actually getting distributed evenly amongst everyone who has their Pixios tokens staked. So it's a really cool model, and you could earn more Pixios from playing the paint game too, which I earned some that way. But it was really cool to wake up this morning and see free EOS in my account. It's I'm finally on the bandwagon here, the div bandwagon. Now I'm never going to stop talking about it. I'm going to be like that guy that like
welcome.
You're like the hipster of the divs.
100%. Welcome to the world's future business model. I think more and more businesses, even a small business, in the future, you'll be able to invest in a local pizza shop or a pizza chain and collect dividends on a blockchain, maybe hourly or daily or weekly, whatever the case may be for that individual business. So cool to see Pixios launching. A huge shout out to Fred and the team. I know they really didn't sleep for like 3-4 days in a row, and even long before that, trying to get this platform ready to get the beta out there. And now that it's out, it's been amazing to see so many people painting on it and really making some really cool art. So huge shout out to them. Can't wait to see how that platform develops.
We got one more thing about Pixios, and I can't believe we forgot to mention it, is Cypherglass. You led the way on this partnership with, what is it, Threadless, an online apparel store. So you basically facilitated this partnership between Pixios and Threadless. You want to explain what exactly you guys did and what we could expect to see in the future?
Yeah, so a huge part of our goal at Cypherglass with this dapp program, Pixios is a part of that dapp program, where we're going out, we're investing in dapps, we're helping them with things. Part of that is trying to bring these giant centralized companies that align with the dapps in some ways into the EOS ecosystem and actually get part of their community to become part of the EOS, or in this case, the Pixios community. So Threadless is an awesome sort of online artist shop. They have a massive community of millions and millions of artists around the world that, design different merch, design different art, and sort of sell it on this centralized platform. And my brother Ben has a great relationship with Threadless, along with many, many other huge centralized companies that we're talking with to bring into the EOS space. But he had a great relationship with them, is setting up Pixios with an artist shop where if you're making art on Pixios, you'll be able to sell it on Threadless as well. And that's kind of the initial integration there. But beyond that, we're looking at some really cool ways to actually integrate the Pixios token into the overall Threadless ecosystem. And what's so cool about this, the Pixios art community, is that it already brought in a lot of artists, just people that knew the Pixios team and knew us. It brought in artists that had never touched a blockchain before, and now they're playing a blockchain game every single day in Pixios Paint. But beyond that, Threadless will kind of supercharge that and take it to the next level, where you have a community of artists that are already creating, they're already collaborating with each other, and to bring them to a platform like Pixios, where they can maybe earn some tokens doing it, be a part of this community, I think will do wonders for the ecosystem. So this is the first of many partnerships that you'll see over the course of 2019 of big centralized companies moving into the EOS space, thanks to our previous business connections.
So you guys have been on fire lately, and pretty much this entire time since you announced as a block producer. So props to you guys. But your brother Ben's been on fire. He finally got his own personal Twitter account.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's on fire. Like, what's he have? Like, he's almost up to 1,000 followers in like a couple weeks.
I think so. In only these, in I want to say 10 days, he got 1,000 followers. Ben, my brother, for those who don't know, has been in marketing for 20 plus years. He ran a huge agency for a while. Over the last couple of years, ran a marketing agency within crypto. So he has, helped raise more than $100 million for projects. He's done so much in the marketing space that kind of gives him a deeper understanding of these platforms like Twitter than we all have. So if you want to follow him, it's at Hodl Brands, HODL Brands, BRANDS on Twitter. Pretty cool name. You can sort of see a little bit more into his backstory and everything he's doing to help out the EOS ecosystem. There's
like a blockchain running through the Finch family veins. Your brother, your brother Mike, who I worked with at ICO Alert, he just launched a block producing node on another network called IOST. Your brother was doing a blockchain company before Cypherglass. You had a blockchain company before Cypherglass. You guys are killing it, and you haven't slowed down. So we announced the launch of EOS Name Service a couple weeks ago, and last week I asked you an update, and you said it's doing really well. You're getting a lot of people buying them. A lot of people are happy about them. I've been seeing more names. For example, like on the leaderboards of Pixios, I'm seeing these shortened names. But you guys just launched another suffix that I think is going to be in pretty high demand as well, and you've got a lot more up your sleeve.
Yeah, so we just launched .ai on EOS Name Service. So if you head over to eosnameservice.io, you can register a .ai name, whether that's Rob.ai or Tesla AI. Somebody just got Robot.ai, which I thought was kind of funny. But so many new name combinations with this. You can think there are a lot of words in pinyin, which is kind of the Americanized version of how to pronounce Chinese. A lot of them end in AI as well. So it'll be kind of interesting to see all the different names people register. But, we really are pushing towards giving people tons and tons of options. So while AI just released, there will be many, many more on the way. And we have a lot lined up that we're just kind of waiting to release now as well. So it's been super exciting. And there's a lot more coming, even beyond just more names that we'll have to share soon on EOS Name Service over the coming weeks. So super, super excited about what's in store.
Man, I'm pumped. So much good news going on. Before we close out, let's just run through it. So we got the Virginia Tech partnership with Block.One, completely on fire. More and more stuff happening. And Dan Larimer is assisting with the curriculum as part of a $3 million grant to Virginia Tech. Rex update. Rex for All's doing really well in the voting. Pretty much the community and the block producers are in agreement with what EOS New York put out about if we have to, we will pass a referendum if it doesn't hit 15%. So many dapps with new staking coming to the mainnet. Block producers like Cypherglass coming up with new products and services all the time. EOS Name Service is awesome. I highly recommend it. We have a referral code if you want to support this show specifically. But yeah, I'm pumped, Rob. I can't wait to do this again next week. Do you have anything we missed today?
I think that's it. Thanks for, sticking with us. I know I was a little under weather this week, so if my excitement wasn't quite there, maybe it was at 95% of the usual 100, that's why. But thanks for sticking with us. We'll see you next week here on the longest running EOS podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, smash that thumbs up button.
All right. That's it for today. So once again, I'm Zack Gall.
I'm Rob Finch.
And this is Everything EOS.
Go EOS!